That quilt pretending to be a dress is an insult to decent society. Mrs. Alden's laughter cut through Miller's mercantile like a whip, and the other women joined in, their voices rising in cruel harmony. Lydia's fingers went numb against the worn patches her mother had sewn with dying hands. The silk-clad circle closed tighter, their perfume choking, their eyes stripping her bare. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Then boot heels struck the floor like thunder, and a voice, deep, absolute, shattering, rang out. "She's the finest woman in this store." Every sound died. The cowboy's eyes blazed. "And worth more than all of you combined." Before we continue this story, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and stay with me until the very end. Comment below with the city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. Mrs. Alden's mouth hung open like a fish gasping for air. The mercantile fell silent except for the creak of floorboards as the cowboy moved deeper into the room. Lydia couldn't breathe. She'd never seen him before, but everyone else clearly had. The women who'd been laughing seconds ago now clutched their packages like shields. "Mr. Hayes," Mrs. Alden recovered first, her voice climbing an octave. "Surely you're mistaken. This girl—" "This woman," he corrected, his eyes never leaving Lydia's face, "has more dignity in one finger than this entire room combined." Lydia's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to run, to disappear, to wake up from whatever fever dream this was. But her feet wouldn't move. "You don't understand." Mrs. Catherine Miller stepped forward, the shopkeeper's wife, her face flushed. "Her kind—" "Her kind?" The cowboy's voice dropped low, dangerous. "You mean the kind who works from dawn until dark? The kind who doesn't have a husband's money to hide behind?" Catherine's face went white. Her husband had gambled away half their inventory last month. Everyone knew it. "Colton," another voice interjected. Mrs. Margaret Foster, the mayor's wife, arranged her features into something resembling diplomacy. "We appreciate your gallantry, but you're new to Cedar Springs. You don't know the families, the histories." "I know enough." He finally turned from Lydia, and the loss of his gaze felt like cold water. "I know that dress was made with love and worn with pride. I know that takes more courage than buying something pretty off a shelf." "How dare you?" Mrs. Alden found her voice again, shrill with indignation. "My husband is the president of Cedar Springs Bank. One word from me—" "Will accomplish exactly nothing." Colton's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because your husband just approved my loan for 3,000 head of cattle. I'd be real careful about whose wife starts making threats." The color drained from Mrs. Alden's face. Lydia watched the power shift like watching ice crack across a winter pond. Fascinating. Terrifying. "We meant no harm," Margaret backtracked quickly. "Just harmless conversation between ladies." "Harmless?" Colton's laugh was bitter. "You want to see harm, Mrs. Foster? Keep treating good people like dirt, and watch this town rot from the inside." Lydia finally found her voice. "Stop." It came out smaller than she intended. She cleared her throat, tried again. "Please stop." Every eye turned to her. She forced herself to stand straight, even though her knees threatened to buckle. "I don't need defending," she said, the lie bitter on her tongue. She'd needed defending her entire life, but accepting it from this stranger felt like admitting defeat. "I came for flour, that's all." "Then let's get you your flour." Colton moved to the counter where Mr. Miller stood frozen, clearly calculating how to navigate the minefield his store had become. "How much does she need?" "I can pay for my own," Lydia started. "I'm sure you can." Colton's voice gentled when he spoke to her. "But let me do this. Please." Something in that "please" undid her, Not the command of his earlier words, but the request, the acknowledgement that she had a choice. 20 pounds, she whispered. Mr. Miller scrambled to fill the order, his hands shaking as he measured. The women watched in stunned silence as Colton paid, as he hefted the heavy sack like it weighed nothing, as he turned back to Lydia with something in his eyes that made her stomach flip. "May I walk you out?" She nodded because words had abandoned her completely. The door closed behind them, and the late afternoon sun hit Lydia's face like a benediction. She breathed in dust and freedom and the faint scent of leather from Colton's vest. "You didn't have to do that," she managed after a few steps. "I know." He adjusted the flour sack on his shoulder. "Where's your wagon?" "I don't have one. I walked." He stopped. "From where?" "Warren Farm, about 3 miles north." 3 miles, he shook his head. "In this heat, carrying flour." "I've done it before." Defensive now because she heard the judgment in his voice. Everyone judged. That's what people did. "I'm sure you have." But his tone held no mockery. "Doesn't make it right. My horse can carry us both, plus the flour. Let me give you a ride home." "I don't even know you." "Colton Hayes. I bought the old Morrison Ranch last month. Planning to build it back up." He extended his free hand. "Now you know me." She stared at his hand. Calloused, she noticed. Not soft like a banker's or a shopkeeper's. This man worked with his hands. "Lydia Warren." She took his hand. The warmth of it shot straight through her arm. "Miss Warren." His grip was firm but brief. "My horse is this way." She should refuse. She should walk home alone like always. She should not get on a horse with a strange man, no matter how he'd defended her. She followed him anyway. His horse was a big roan gelding tied outside the saloon. Colton loaded the flour into a saddlebag with practiced ease, then mounted and extended his hand down to her. "I've never ridden a horse," she admitted. "Then today's full of firsts." His smile was kind. "I won't let you fall." She gripped his hand and let him pull her up behind the saddle. The height made her dizzy. Or maybe that was from wrapping her arms around a stranger's waist, feeling the solid warmth of him through his shirt. "Hold tight," he said, and nudged the horse forward. They rode in silence for the first mile. Lydia's mind raced. This man had humiliated the town's social elite for her. A stranger. Why? "Why did you do that?" The words escaped before she could stop them. "Do what?" "Stand up for me. You don't know me. For all you know, I deserve everything they said." The horse's gait hitched as Colton pulled back on the reins slightly. "You think you deserve that?" "I didn't say that." "You implied it." His voice hardened. "That's worse." "You don't understand." Frustration burned in her chest. "This town has known me my whole life. I'm the poor farm girl whose father drank himself to death, and whose mother worked herself into an early grave. I'm the charity case who wears dead women's dresses because I can't afford new ones. Enough!" The word cracked like a whip. The horse stopped. Colton twisted in the saddle to look at her, and his eyes blazed. "I've heard enough about what this town thinks of you. What do you think of you?" The question hit her like a fist. "What?" "You heard me. Strip away their voices, their judgments, their small-minded cruelty. What does Lydia Warren think of Lydia Warren?" She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, because no one had ever asked her that before. "I'll tell you what I see," he continued, his voice dropping. "I see a woman who walked 3 miles in brutal heat to buy flour. I see someone who held her head high while vipers struck at her. I see strength they'll never have because they've never had to develop it." "You see what you want to see," she whispered. "Maybe." He turned back around, urged the horse forward. "Or maybe I see what's actually there. and everyone else is blind. They rode the rest of the way in loaded silence. When they reached the worn fence marking Warren property, Colton dismounted and helped her down. His hands on her waist were steady, gentle. She felt their imprint long after he released her. "Thank you," she said, "for the ride, and the flower, and everything." "You're welcome." He retrieved the flour sack, then paused. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded, wary. "Do you know anything about orchard management?" The question threw her. Yes. My mother kept an apple orchard. Small, but it produced well. I've maintained it since she passed. I'm planning to plant fruit trees on the Morrison place. 3 acres, maybe 4. I need someone who knows what they're doing. His eyes met hers, direct and honest. I'll pay fair wages, more than fair. Lydia's breath caught. You're offering me work? I'm offering you a job. There's a difference. Why? Because I need an orchard expert, and apparently I just met one. He handed her the flower. Think about it. Come by the ranch tomorrow if you're interested. Hayes River Ranch on Morrison Road. I know where it is. Everyone knew the Morrison place. Beautiful land, gone to seed after old man Morrison died without heirs. Tomorrow, then. He mounted his horse with easy grace. And Miss Warren? Wear whatever dress you damn well please. He rode off before she could respond, leaving her standing in the yard with 20 pounds of flour and a head full of confusion. Inside the small farmhouse, Lydia set the flour on the kitchen table and sank into a chair. Her hands shook. The day felt like a dream, the kind where you wake up and can't quite shake the feeling that something fundamental has shifted. She thought about Mrs. Alden's face when Colton mentioned the bank loan. She thought about Catherine Miller's shame. She thought about the way the most powerful women in Cedar Springs had crumbled under one man's contempt. But mostly, she thought about his question. What does Lydia Warren think of Lydia Warren? She didn't know. She'd spent so long surviving, she'd never stopped to consider thriving. Never stopped to think she deserved more than scraps and scorn. The orchard beckoned through the window. Her mother's trees, heavy with early summer apples. Lydia had pruned them, fertilized them, loved them like children. They produced more fruit than she could sell, more than she could eat. Every year she gave most of it away to families who pretended charity tasted sweet instead of bitter. She could manage Colton Hayes' orchard. She knew it in her bones. The question was whether she had the courage to try. Sleep came hard that night. Lydia lay in her narrow bed, listening to the house settle, and made lists in her head. Reasons to go. Reasons to stay away. Reasons to go. Money. Respect. A chance to use her skills. Colton's eyes when he'd looked at her, like she mattered. Reasons to stay away. Fear. The town's gossip. The risk of wanting something she couldn't have. Colton's eyes when he'd looked at her, like she mattered. Same reason on both lists. That probably meant something. She rose at dawn from habit, fed the chickens, checked the orchard, made coffee from grounds she'd used twice already. The flour from yesterday sat on the counter, still seeming impossible. A gift. An insult to her pride. A kindness she didn't know how to accept. By mid-morning, she'd made her decision. The walk to Hayes River Ranch took an hour. Lydia wore her second-best dress, the blue one with only 3 patches. She'd washed her face until it shone and braided her hair with shaking fingers. This was foolish. This was brave. This was necessary. The ranch house came into view, and her steps slowed. The main house was 2 stories, painted white with green shutters. Needed work, but the bones were good. Fences needed mending. The barn listed slightly to the left. But the land, God, the land was beautiful. Rolling hills, good water, soil that looked rich and dark. 3 men worked near the barn, their voices carrying on the wind. Lydia recognized none of them. Her courage faltered. Then Colton emerged from the house, and his face lit up when he saw her. "You came," he called, striding toward her with long steps. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," she admitted. "But you did." He stopped, a respectful distance away, but his smile was warm. "That's what matters. Come on, let me show you where I'm thinking for the orchard." He led her around the main house to a stretch of south-facing slope. The land rolled gently, good drainage, protected from northern winds by a stand of cottonwoods. "Here," he said, gesturing broadly. "What do you think?" Lydia walked the slope, feeling the soil, checking the sun angles, running calculations in her head. The land spoke to her the way it always had, telling her what it needed, what it could support. "It's perfect," she said finally. "Apple trees would thrive here. Peach, too, if you're willing to wait. Cherry along the eastern edge where the morning sun hits first. How many trees are we talking?" "Depends on spacing and variety. I'd say 60 to 80 for this space. Maybe more if you want a denser planting." Colton whistled low. "That's ambitious." "You said 3 acres, maybe 4. I'm giving you a plan for 3. If you want 4, we expand north." She pointed. "But that means more water infrastructure. Pipes, maybe a windmill to pump from the creek." "You've thought about this." "I've lived it." She met his eyes. "This is what I know, Mr. Hayes. Trees, soil, growth. It's the only thing I'm certain about." "Then teach me," he said simply. "I'll pay you $2 a day to consult. More if you'll stay on to manage the planting and first year of care." $2 a day. Lydia's mind reeled. She made $2 a week selling apples and eggs. That's too much. "It's exactly right for expert consultation." His tone left no room for argument. "Yes or no, Miss Warren? I need to know if you're in." She thought about the farmhouse, lonely and small. She thought about the town women who'd mocked her yesterday, who would mock her tomorrow. She thought about Colton's question, the one that had kept her awake all night. What does Lydia Warren think of Lydia Warren? Maybe it was time to find out. "Yes," she said, "I'm in." The smile that broke across Colton's face made her stomach flip. "Good. When can you start?" "Now, if you need me." "I always need good people." He extended his hand for a shake, businesslike and proper. "Welcome to Hayes River Ranch, Miss Warren." She shook his hand, feeling the calluses, the strength, the promise of something she couldn't name yet. "Call me Lydia. If we're going to work together, we should probably use first names." Lydia. The way he said her name felt like a gift. "I'm Colton." "I know." She allowed herself a small smile. "You're kind of famous now, after yesterday." His expression darkened. "People talking?" "People are always talking. The question is whether you care." "Do you?" Lydia looked out over the slope, imagining trees where now only grass grew, imagining fruit heavy on branches she'd tend, imagining a future that didn't taste like ashes and poverty. "I'm here, aren't I?" She turned back to him. "That's your answer." She worked through that first afternoon like her life depended on it, because maybe it did. Colton brought her paper and pencil, and Lydia sketched out planting plans with hands that knew what they were doing, even when her mind couldn't quite believe she was doing it. He watched over her shoulder, asking questions that showed he actually listened, actually cared about understanding. "Why space them 15 feet apart?" he asked, pointing to her apple tree diagram. "Air circulation. disease prevention, room for the roots to spread without competing. She didn't look up from her work. Easier to be confident when she wasn't meeting those eyes. Closer spacing means bigger harvest short term, but you'll lose trees to blight within 5 years. And you're thinking long term. I'm always thinking long term. Now she did look up. That's the difference between farming and gambling, his mouth quirked. You got opinions about gambling too? My father taught me everything I need to know about that particular vice. The bitterness leaked through before she could stop it. Colton's expression softened. I heard about your father. I'm sorry. Don't be. He made his choices. She returned to the diagram, adding notes about soil amendments. We all do. That we do. He pulled up a chair, sat backward on it with his arms crossed over the back. So what's your choice, Lydia? Really? Why say yes to this? The question stopped her pencil mid-stroke. You're paying me $2 a day. Money's not everything, especially when taking it means facing down this whole town. His voice was gentle but insistent. They're going to talk. You know they will. They already talk. She set down the pencil, met his eyes. At least now I'll have something to show for it. Fair enough. He stood, moved to the window. But if it gets too hard, if they come at you too harsh... I can handle harsh. The words came out sharper than she intended. I've been handling harsh my entire life. I know you can, he turned back. Doesn't mean you should have to. Something in his tone made her chest tight. This man saw her. Actually saw her. The realization was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. I should get home before dark, she said, gathering her papers. I'll start sourcing seedlings tomorrow. There's a nursery in Millbrook that... Take the horse. What? Take my horse. It's a long walk, and you've been working all afternoon. He was already moving toward the door. I'll come by your place tomorrow morning to pick him up and bring you back here. That's not necessary, Lydia. He stopped, looked at her. Let me help. Please. That word again. Please. Like he was asking permission to be decent. All right, she said quietly. Thank you. The ride home was easier than yesterday, though the horse tested her inexperience. She gripped the reins too tight, sat too stiff, but made it to her farm without falling off. Small victories. Inside the house, she lit a lamp and spread her diagrams across the kitchen table. The plans were good. She knew they were good. But doubt crept in anyway, whispering with her father's voice. Who do you think you are? You think some fancy rancher actually cares what you know? She shoved the voice down, focused on the work. Morning came too fast. Lydia was feeding the chickens when she heard hooves. Colton rode up on a different horse, leading the roan she'd borrowed. Mornin', he called. You ready? Give me 5 minutes. She scattered the last of the feed, wiped her hands on her apron. I need to change. You look fine. I look like I've been working since dawn. Exactly. His grin was infuriating. That's the best kind of look. She changed anyway, into the blue dress again, and met him in the yard. He'd already loaded her diagrams into his saddlebag. Presumptuous, she said, but without heat. Efficient, he countered. Come on, we've got a full day ahead. At the ranch, 3 of Colton's men were waiting near the barn. They stopped talking when Lydia dismounted, their eyes tracking her with undisguised curiosity. Miss Warren, Colton's voice carried authority. These are my hands, Jack, Tommy, and Samuel. They'll be helping with the heavy work on the orchard project. The men nodded, respectful but distant. Lydia recognized the look, waiting to see if she'd prove worth their time. Gentlemen, she said crisply, we'll need to start with soil preparation. That means clearing the slope, testing drainage, and amending the earth before any trees go in. It's hard work, but it's necessary. You heard the lady, Colton said. Jack, get the tools. Tommy, Samuel, start marking the clearing lines Miss Warren drew up. The men moved to obey, and Lydia felt something shift. They were listening to her, actually listening. The morning passed in a blur of work. Lydia directed the men with growing confidence, and they responded without complaint. By noon, they'd cleared a third of the slope and started the first soil tests. You're a natural at this, Colton said, handing her a canteen of water. It's just organization. She drank deep, grateful. Knowing what needs doing and in what order. That's called leadership. He took the canteen back, his fingers brushing hers. Most people can't do it to save their lives. Before she could respond, a wagon rolled up the drive. Lydia's stomach dropped. She recognized that wagon, recognized the woman driving it. Mrs. Catherine Miller, the shopkeeper's wife, pulled up near the house. Her smile was tight as wire. "Mr. Hayes," she called. "I brought those supplies you ordered." "Appreciate it, Mrs. Miller." Colton walked toward the wagon. "Let me help you unload." Catherine's eyes found Lydia standing by the slope, and her expression curdled. "I see you've hired help. How charitable of you." "Nothing charitable about it." Colton's voice cooled. "Miss Warren's the best orchard expert in the county. I'm lucky she agreed to work for me." "Expert." Catherine's laugh was acid. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Lydia's hands clenched. She should walk away, should ignore this, but her feet stayed planted. "Problem, Mrs. Miller?" she called out. Catherine's face flushed. "No problem at all. I just think it's interesting how quickly some people forget their place." "And what place is that?" Lydia moved closer, each step deliberate. "The place where I stand quiet while you insult me? That place?" "Girls like you—" "I'm not a girl." Lydia's voice cut clean. "I'm a woman with skills you'll never have, and work ethic you can't imagine. If that threatens you, Mrs. Miller, that's your burden to carry, not mine." Catherine's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Colton watched with something like pride in his eyes. "The supplies," he said mildly. "Let's get them unloaded so Mrs. Miller can be on her way." The unloading happened in frigid silence. Catherine left without another word, but Lydia saw the fury in every line of her body. That would cost her. She knew it would cost her. "You all right?" Colton asked when the wagon disappeared down the road. "No." Lydia's hand shook. "I just made an enemy I can't afford." "You stood up for yourself. That's not making an enemy. That's refusing to be a victim." "Easy for you to say. You're not the one they'll destroy." "They can't destroy you." His certainty was absolute. "Not unless you let them." But he didn't understand. He couldn't. He was Colton Hayes, successful rancher, respected man. She was nobody. Nobody with nothing. The afternoon proved her right. Word spread faster than wildfire. By the time Lydia left for home that evening, riding the borrowed horse again, she could feel the town's eyes on her back, could feel judgment forming like a noose. At Miller's Mercantile the next morning, she needed fabric for patches. The silence was deafening. Every conversation stopped when she entered. Every eye tracked her movement. "Can I help you?" Mr. Miller's voice was careful, neutral. "Fabric. 2 yards of the brown cotton." He measured it out without meeting her eyes. When she paid, his hand barely touched hers, like poverty might be catching. Outside, she nearly collided with Mrs. Alden and 2 other women. "Well," Mrs. Alden said, her voice carrying, "if it isn't the ranch expert." Lydia tried to step around them. They blocked her path. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "We're just curious," one of the other women said, Mrs. Patricia Owens, the doctor's wife. "What exactly does Mr. Hayes have you doing out there?" Because Catherine says, I don't care what Catherine says. Lydia's patience snapped. And my work is none of your concern. Everything in this town is our concern. Mrs. Alden stepped closer. Especially when a certain type of woman starts taking advantage of a decent man's kindness. The implication hit like a slap. Lydia's face burned. How dare you? I dare because someone needs to. Mrs. Alden's smile was poisonous. Men like Colton Hayes don't understand how girls like you operate. But we do. We see exactly what you're doing. What I'm doing is working, earning an honest wage for honest labor. If that's confusing to you, maybe you should examine your own life choices. Mrs. Owens gasped. Mrs. Alden's face went purple. You little... There a problem here? A man's voice interrupted. Not Colton's. Older. Rougher. Sheriff Tom Brennan stepped into the circle. His weathered face neutral, but his eyes sharp.
He'd been sheriff for 30 years, seen everything, impressed by nothing.
No problem, Tom. Mrs. Alden recovered quickly. Just chatting with Miss Warren. Didn't look like chatting. His gaze swept over them. Looked like harassment, which, if I recall, is against the law. We would never... Then I suggest you move along. Not a request, an order. The women scattered like crows. The sheriff tipped his hat to Lydia. You all right, Miss Warren? Yes, sir. Thank you. Word of advice? He lowered his voice. Keep your head down. Work hard. Let the results speak for themselves. Town like this, people love to talk. But talk's just noise. Quality's what lasts. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her standing on the boardwalk with fabric clutched in her hands and tears threatening behind her eyes. She didn't cry. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. At the ranch, Colton took one look at her face and knew. What happened? Nothing. She dismounted, handed him the reins. Just the usual. Lydia, I said it's nothing. She grabbed her work satchel, headed for the slope. We've got trees to plan for. He didn't push. She was grateful for that. The work helped. Always did. Lydia lost herself in calculations, in soil tests, in directing the men who'd started to respect her competence, if not her social standing. By afternoon, she'd almost forgotten the morning's ugliness. Then Colton called her to the house. Got someone here who wants to meet you, he said. Lydia followed him inside, confused. A woman sat in the parlor, older, maybe 60, with silver hair and sharp eyes. She stood when Lydia entered, and her smile was genuine. Miss Warren, she said, I'm Margaret Hayes, Colton's aunt. The pieces clicked. Margaret Hayes, the widow who'd raised Colton after his parents died. The woman who ran the biggest ranch in the next county, with an iron fist and a kind heart. Ma'am, Lydia managed, it's an honor. The honor's mine. Colton's told me about your work here, about your expertise. Margaret's eyes were knowing. And about how certain people in this town are treating you for daring to use it. Lydia's cheeks burned. I'm handling it. I'm sure you are. But you shouldn't have to handle it alone. Margaret exchanged a look with Colton. Which is why I'm hosting a dinner party next week. Small gathering, some business associates, some friends. And I'd like you to attend as Colton's guest. Lydia's stomach dropped. I couldn't possibly. You can. Margaret's tone allowed no argument. You're a professional consultant on an important project. You deserve to be treated as such. Besides, her smile turned sly. It'll drive the town biddies absolutely insane. Despite everything, Lydia laughed. The sound surprised her. There, Margaret said with satisfaction. That's better. So you'll come? Lydia looked at Colton. He nodded encouragement. Yes, she heard herself say. I'll come. What had she just agreed to? The question haunted her all week. What had she agreed to?
Lydia stood in her bedroom, staring at her two dresses, the patched one and the slightly less patched one, and felt panic claw up her throat. Margaret Hayes's dinner party. With business associates. With people who mattered. She had nothing to wear. Nothing appropriate. Nothing that wouldn't mark her as exactly what she was. Poor, desperate, out of place. "Stop it," she told herself aloud. The words echoed in the empty house. "You earned this. You belong there." But the dresses stared back, accusing. Her mother's stitches, careful and loving, couldn't hide what they were. Patches, poverty, shame. A knock at the door startled her. She hurried downstairs, found Colton on the porch holding a large box. "What's this?" "Delivery." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "From my aunt." Lydia's stomach sank. "I can't accept." "Open it first, then decide." She took the box inside, set it on the kitchen table. Colton followed, standing awkwardly by the door, like he wasn't sure he should be there. Probably shouldn't. Unmarried man in an unmarried woman's house. The town would feast on that. Lydia lifted the lid. Tissue paper rustled. Beneath it lay a dress the color of deep burgundy. Simple, but elegant, with clean lines and careful tailoring. No patches, no apologies. "I can't," she whispered. "She had it made for you. Sent your measurements from one of your work dresses." Colton's voice was gentle. "She wants you to have it." "Why?" Lydia's hands trembled. "Why does she care?" "Because I told her about you. About your work. About how you stood up to Catherine Miller." He moved closer. "And because she was once where you are now. Poor, looked down on, fighting for every scrap of respect." Lydia looked up sharply. "Margaret Hayes? But she's rich now, respected now. But 30 years ago? She was nobody. Married my uncle for love, and his family cut him off for marrying beneath him." Colton's smile was sad. "She built that ranch from nothing with her bare hands after he died. She knows what it costs to prove yourself." The dress seemed to glow in the dim kitchen light. Beautiful. Impossible. "I still can't accept it." "Then don't think of it as a gift. Think of it as armor." Colton's eyes held hers. "You're walking into battle next week. Might as well be properly equipped." She wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but her fingers were already touching the fabric, soft and fine, nothing like the rough cotton she'd worn her whole life. "Tell her thank you," Lydia said quietly, "and tell her I'll wear it." His smile could have lit the whole county. The days before the party passed in a blur of work and worry. The orchard plans were progressing beautifully. The men respected her now, followed her directions without question. Jack even asked her advice about his own small garden, and that felt like victory. But the town's hostility grew sharper. Women crossed the street to avoid her. Conversations died when she approached. Someone left a dead rat on her porch with a note, "Know your place." She burned the note, buried the rat, kept working. 2 days before the party, disaster struck. Lydia arrived at the ranch to find Colton arguing with a man in an expensive suit. Their voices carried across the yard. "I don't care what your committee thinks," Colton was saying. "The answer's no." "Be reasonable, Hayes." The man's voice was smooth, oily. "The railroad needs this land. We're prepared to offer fair market value." "Fair market value for land I just bought? Land I'm developing?" Colton laughed without humor. "You can take your railroad and—" "Mr. Hayes." Lydia's voice cut through. Both men turned. She recognized the stranger now. Lawrence Pritchard, railroad agent. The man who'd swindled half the farmers in the county out of their land with legal tricks and empty promises. "Miss Warren," Pritchard's smile made her skin crawl. "I didn't realize Hayes had hired help." "Hired expertise," Colton corrected sharply. "What do you want, Pritchard?" "Just to make sure you understand the situation. The railroad's coming through, whether you cooperate or not. We can make this easy, or we can make it hard." His eyes slid to Lydia. "Very hard." "Get off my land," Colton's voice went deadly quiet. "Now." Pritchard tipped his hat, but his smile never wavered. "Think about it, Hayes. Think hard. Because when the railroad decides it wants something, it gets it, one way or another." He left, but his words hung in the air like poison. "What was that about?" Lydia asked. Colton's jaw was tight. "They want the Morrison Road corridor. Claim they need it for the new line to Denver. If they get it, they cut right through my land, through the orchard site." Lydia's heart dropped. All their work, all their plans. Can they do that? They can try. But doubt crept into his voice. Eminent domain. If they claim public necessity, they can force a sale. After you just bought this place? After you invested in improvements? Anger burned through her fear. That's not public necessity. That's theft. That's the railroad. Colton rubbed his face. But I'm not giving up without a fight. I've got lawyers looking into it. And the dinner party Friday? Half those business associates are potential allies, men with influence who might help push back. So that's what the party was really about. Not social pleasantries. Strategy. Power plays. Lydia's role suddenly made more sense. "You need me there to show you're serious about the orchard," she said slowly. "To prove this isn't just talk. You've got an expert, you've got plans, you've got investment already in progress." "Partly." Colton met her eyes. "But mostly I want you there because you deserve to be. Because you've earned it." She wanted to believe him. Wanted it desperately. The day of the party arrived too fast. Lydia spent the morning working herself into a state of pure terror. The burgundy dress hung in her room like an accusation. She'd tried it on once, stared at herself in the mirror, and nearly cried. She looked like someone else, someone who belonged, someone who had no idea how to be that person. By late afternoon, she was sick with nerves. Colton was picking her up at 6. The party started at 7. She had an hour to transform from farm girl to dinner guest, and no idea how to accomplish it. She washed until her skin was raw, brushed her hair until it shone. The dress slipped over her head like water, and when she buttoned it up, her hands shook so badly she had to start over twice. The woman in the mirror wasn't Lydia Warren. Couldn't be. Lydia Warren wore patches and shame. This woman wore burgundy and something that might have been hope. Colton's knock came precisely at 6. She opened the door, and his expression stopped her breath. "Lydia." Just her name, but the way he said it made her feel beautiful. "Is it all right?" She hated how small her voice sounded. "It's perfect. You're perfect." He extended his arm. "Ready?" "No." Honesty felt safer than lies. "But I'll go anyway." The ride to Margaret's ranch took 30 minutes. Lydia spent them in silent panic, while Colton kept up steady conversation about nothing important. Weather, horses, the quality of the road, anything to keep her from bolting. Margaret's house blazed with light. Carriages lined the drive. Through the windows, Lydia could see people moving, talking, laughing. People who belonged. "I can't do this," she said as Colton helped her down. "Yes, you can." His hand was warm on hers.
You walked into Miller's Mercantile and faced down the worst they could throw. This is nothing. This is everything. But she let him lead her to the door anyway. Margaret herself answered, resplendent in emerald silk. Her smile was knowing. "Lydia, you look stunning. Come in, come in." She drew them inside, and the heat of bodies and conversation washed over Lydia like a wave. Everyone's dying to meet Colton's orchard expert. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions. Business owners from 3 counties, ranchers, merchants, even a state representative. Lydia shook hands until her arm ached, smiled until her face hurt, and tried desperately to remember names and faces. Most people were polite. Distant, but polite. A few were genuinely kind. And then there were the others. "So, you're the Warren girl," said Harrison Talbot, a cattle baron from the next county. His eyes raked over her dress. "Margaret's charity case." "I'm Colton's orchard consultant," Lydia said evenly, "and Margaret's guest." "Consultant," he laughed. "That's a fancy word for it."
It's the accurate word for it.
Colton appeared at her elbow. Miss Warren designed the entire orchard plan. 3 acres of fruit trees, sustainable irrigation, projected yield of 400 bushels per year within 5 years. "If the railroad doesn't take it first," Talbot said. "Heard Pritchard sniffing around your land. That true?" "It's true." Colton's voice was steel. "But I'm not selling. Might not have a choice. Railroad wants what it wants." Talbot's grin was cruel. "Shame to waste all that effort, all that expertise." His eyes slid to Lydia. "Unless the expertise was never really about trees." Lydia's face burned. She opened her mouth to respond, but Margaret cut in smoothly. "Harrison, your wife's looking for you. Something about the dessert table." Not true, probably, but it got him moving. When he was gone, Margaret squeezed Lydia's shoulder. "Don't let him get to you. Harrison's a bully, always has been." But the damage was done. Lydia could feel eyes on her now. Hear the whispers, the assumptions. They all thought the same thing. Poor girl using her looks to climb. Poor girl trading on a rich man's kindness. She excused herself, found the washroom, locked the door, pressed her palms against the sink, and fought for breath. This was a mistake. All of it. The dress, the party, the job. She should have stayed where she belonged. Should have known better than to reach above her station. A knock. "Lydia?" Margaret's voice. "Can I come in?" Lydia unlocked the door. Margaret slipped inside, took one look at her face, and sighed. "Harrison's an ass. Ignore him." "Everyone's thinking it," Lydia's voice cracked. "They all think I'm some kind of... They think you're exactly what you are. A smart woman making her own way in a world that doesn't want smart women." Margaret's eyes were fierce. "And that terrifies them. As it should. I don't belong here. You belong wherever you choose to be. That's the secret they don't want you to know." Margaret gripped her shoulders. "I was 19 when I married Colton's uncle. His family called me a gold digger, a harlot. Said I'd trapped him with my feminine wiles." She laughed bitterly. "As if a man needs trapping when he's in love. But I survived their poison, built something they couldn't tear down, and you will too." "How?" The word came out broken. "By refusing to quit, by showing up, by doing the work better than anyone else can." Margaret released her. "Now fix your face and get back out there. Dinner's about to be served, and I sat you next to Judge Morrison. He's sympathetic to the railroad dispute, and Colton needs you to charm him." "I don't know how to charm anyone." "Then be yourself. That's charm enough." Dinner was an ordeal. 7 courses, 4 kinds of wine, conversation that flowed around Lydia like water around a stone. She tried to follow,
tried to contribute, but felt painfully out of depth. Judge Morrison turned out to be kind, at least. Elderly and slightly deaf, but kind. He asked her about the orchard, and she found her footing talking about soil composition and tree varieties. His eyes lit up. "My late wife loved apple trees," he said. "Could never get them to grow right, though. Always lost them to disease." "Fire blight?" Lydia asked. "Yes. How did you know?" "It's common in this region. The solution is aggressive pruning and copper spray applications in early spring." She warmed to the topic. "Most people don't prune enough. They're afraid of hurting the tree. But strategic cutting actually strengthens it." "Fascinating." He leaned closer. "Tell me more." She did, and slowly, conversation at their end of the table shifted. Others began listening, asking questions. Lydia answered, her confidence growing with each word. This she knew. This she could do.
By the time dessert arrived, she'd advised 3 ranchers on fruit tree cultivation, recommended a specific nursery to the state representative, and earned Judge Morrison's genuine respect. "You know your business, Miss Warren," he said. "Colton's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have the work." She meant it. After dinner, the men retired to the study for cigars and politics. The women gathered in the parlor, and Lydia found herself trapped. Margaret had to play hostess. She was alone with 8 women who looked at her like something they'd scraped off their shoes. "So," said Elizabeth Talbot, Harrison's wife, "how long have you known Mr. Hayes?" "A few weeks." Lydia kept her voice neutral. "And he's already invited you to dinner parties? Dressed you in expensive gowns?" Elizabeth's smile was poison. "How generous." The dress was a gift from Mrs. Hayes, for professional purposes. Professional. Another woman, Lydia didn't catch her name, laughed. "Is that what we're calling it?" "What exactly are you implying?" Lydia's patience snapped. She'd endured enough. "Nothing at all." Elizabeth's innocence was practiced. "Simply that it's unusual for a man to take such personal interest in his hired help. Unless, of course, the help is providing more than agricultural expertise." The room went silent. Every woman watched, waiting for Lydia to crumble. She didn't. "You want to know what I provide?" Lydia stood. "I provide knowledge earned through years of hard work. I provide skills most of you wouldn't recognize if they slapped you in the face. I provide honest labor for honest wages, which is more than some of your husbands can say about their business dealings." Elizabeth's face went white. "How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? Defend myself?" Lydia's voice rose. "You've spent this entire evening trying to make me feel small, trying to put me in my place. But here's what you don't understand. I've spent my whole life in the place you think I belong. Poor, overlooked, dismissed. And I'm done staying there just because it makes you comfortable." "This is outrageous," another woman sputtered. "Margaret, are you going to allow—" "Allow what?" Margaret's voice cut through. She stood in the doorway, having slipped back in unnoticed. "Allow a guest to defend herself against vicious insinuation? Yes, Elizabeth, I absolutely will allow that." "We were just being cruel." Margaret's tone could have frozen fire. "To a woman who's done nothing but work hard and conduct herself with dignity, while you've done nothing but spread poison and judge people based on circumstances they can't control." The women shifted uncomfortably. No one met Margaret's eyes. "Lydia is my guest," Margaret continued, "and Colton's valued consultant. If any of you have a problem with that, there's the door. Otherwise, I suggest you remember your manners." Silence. Then, slowly, the women began finding excuses to drift away, to powder their noses, to check on their husbands. Within minutes, only Margaret and Lydia remained. "I'm sorry," Lydia said. "I shouldn't have lost my temper." Don't apologize for having a spine, Margaret smiled. That was magnificent. Terrifying, but magnificent. I've probably made enemies for life. You've made them respect you, even if they hate it. Margaret poured them both wine. Besides, you made Judge Morrison like you. That's worth 10 society wives. The men emerged from the study eventually. Colton found Lydia on the back porch, staring at stars and wondering how one evening could feel like a lifetime. "How bad was it?" he asked, on a scale of 1 to catastrophic. "Somewhere around disaster." She accepted the drink he offered. "Your aunt had to rescue me from the wives." "I heard. Judge Morrison heard too. The walls are thin." Colton's grin was wicked. "He said watching you put Elizabeth Talbot in her place was worth the price of admission." "He did not." "He did. Also said, if the railroad tries to take my land, he'll personally review the eminent domain claim, make sure every I is dotted, every T crossed." Colton's expression sobered. "You did that, Lydia. Your knowledge, your passion about the orchard. You convinced him it's a legitimate agricultural investment worth protecting." "I just talked about trees." "You talked about what matters to you, and it mattered to him." Colton moved closer. "You were incredible tonight." "I was terrified." "Terrified and incredible aren't mutually exclusive." His hand found hers. "Thank you for being here, for facing them down, for being you." His thumb traced circles on her palm, and Lydia's breath caught. This was dangerous. This closeness, this warmth, this feeling that maybe, just maybe, she could have something more than survival. "Colton, I know." He released her hand like it burned. "I'm sorry. That was inappropriate." "Was it?" The question escaped before she could stop it. He stared at her. "Lydia, I'm your employer. There's a power dynamic. I don't want you to feel pressured." "You're not pressuring me." God, was she really saying this? "You're just being decent, being kind, being everything this town isn't." "They'll say I'm taking advantage." "They already say worse." She faced him fully. "They say I'm using you, that I'm trading on your kindness, that I'm—" She couldn't finish. "None of that's true." His voice was fierce. "None of it." "I know, but it doesn't matter. They'll believe what they want to believe." Lydia took a shaky breath. "So the question is, what do we believe? About this, about us?" The word hung between them. Us. Like they were something together. Like they could be. "I believe," Colton said slowly, "that I've never met anyone like you. I believe you're brilliant and brave and deserve every good thing this world can offer. And I believe—" He stopped. Started again. "I believe I'm falling for you, Lydia Warren. Have been since the moment I walked into that mercantile and saw you standing tall against their cruelty." Her heart stopped. Started again. Different. "That's foolish," she whispered. "Probably." His smile was sad. "But there it is anyway." She should walk away, should protect herself, should remember that fairy tales weren't real, and men like Colton Hayes didn't fall for women like her. But his eyes held hers, honest and open, and she couldn't make herself believe it was a lie. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I don't know how to be what you need." "You're already what I need. You just have to be yourself." "Myself isn't enough." "It's everything." He reached for her hand again, held it gently. "We don't have to figure it all out tonight. We can take this slow, careful. See where it goes. The town will crucify us. Let them try." His grip tightened. "I'm tired of caring what they think. Aren't you?" She was. God, she was so tired of it. Tired of shame and judgment and making herself small so others could feel big. Yes, she said. I'm tired of it all. Then let's stop. Simple. Impossible. Let's just live our lives and let them choke on their own poison. The idea was intoxicating, terrifying, exactly what she needed to hear. All right, Lydia said. Let's try. His smile could have lit the whole night sky. They walked back inside together, and Lydia felt the shift immediately. The way people's eyes followed them, the way conversations paused. Everyone knew something had changed between them, even if they couldn't name it yet. Margaret caught Lydia's eye across the room and winked. Approval, permission, blessing. The ride home was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Colton's hand brushed hers twice, and she didn't pull away. Small intimacies that felt enormous. Tomorrow, he said when they reached her farm. Same time? I'll be there, she hesitated. Thank you. For tonight. For everything. Thank me by not giving up. He touched her cheek, brief and gentle. No matter what comes next. The warning in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it steadied her. Whatever was coming, they'd face it together. What came next arrived 3 days later in the form of legal papers. Lydia was at the ranch, directing the men in clearing the last section of slope, when a courier rode up. Official documents, railroad company letterhead. Colton read them once, twice, then crushed the papers in his fist. What is it? Lydia asked, though she already knew. Eminent domain petition. They're filing with the county next week. His voice was flat, controlled, the kind of control that came before explosion. Claiming the Morrison Corridor is essential for public transportation infrastructure. Can they prove that? They don't have to prove anything, just convince the right people. He threw the crumpled papers down. And Pritchard's been buying people off for months. County commissioners, local politicians, even some of the merchants in town. Lydia's mind raced. Judge Morrison said he'd review the claim. He can review all he wants. If the petition's filed, it goes to a hearing, public comment period, then a vote. Colton's jaw was tight. And if the railroads greased enough palms, the vote goes their way, regardless of merit. How long do we have? Petition filing is Monday. Hearing scheduled for 2 weeks after that. Vote probably a week later. He did the math. 3 weeks. Maybe 4 if Morrison drags his feet. 3 weeks to save everything they'd built. Everything they were building. Then we work faster, Lydia said. We get those trees in the ground. We show visible, undeniable progress. Make it harder for them to claim this is just theoretical development. Colton stared at her. That's insane. The nursery order won't arrive for another month. Then we source locally. There's a farmer in Millbrook who grows saplings. They won't be perfect, but they'll establish root systems. We can transplant better stock later. Her mind was already calculating. If we push hard, we can get 20 trees planted by the hearing, maybe 30. Lydia, unless you have a better idea, she challenged him with her eyes. We can sit here and accept defeat, or we can fight. Your choice. His grin was sharp as a blade. You're terrifying when you're strategic. I'm terrifying when I'm angry. She turned to the men. Jack, Tommy, Samuel, we're changing plans. I need you ready to move trees by tomorrow morning. They scrambled to obey, and Lydia felt power surge through her veins. This was hers. This work, this land, this fight. Nobody was taking it without blood. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Lydia worked 16-hour days, directing the men, preparing soil, calculating irrigation. Colton worked beside her, hauling, digging, sweating. They planted 18 trees the first week, 23 the second. The town watched and talked. She's got him wrapped around her finger, Mrs. Alden said, loud enough for Lydia to hear outside the mercantile.
Poor fool doesn't see he's being used. Lydia ignored it, kept working. Unnatural, a woman bossing men around like that, Mr. Porter muttered at the feed store. Someone should remind her what she is. Lydia bought her supplies and left without responding, but the comments burrowed deep anyway, infected her thoughts. Late at night, alone in her farmhouse, doubt whispered with her father's voice. You think you deserve this? You think a man like him could actually want you? She showed up the next morning anyway, kept working, kept fighting. The railroad didn't sit idle.
Pritchard made his rounds, visiting merchants, ranchers, anyone with influence. Promising jobs, promising prosperity, promising progress, if only the community would support the expansion. It's not personal, Hayes, Harrison Talbot said when confronted at the general store. It's business. The railroad means growth. Growth means money for everyone. Growth means nothing if we sell our souls for it, Colton shot back. You want to hand over your land next? Let them run roughshod over everything you built? My land isn't in the corridor. Talbot's smile was smug. Maybe you should have thought about that before you bought. Lydia grabbed Colton's arm before he could throw a punch. He's not worth it. Listen to your woman, Hayes, Talbot called as they walked away. She's smarter than you. Outside, Colton's hands shook with fury. I'm going to destroy him. No, you're not. Lydia's voice was steel. You're going to let him destroy himself. Men like that always do.
How can you be so calm?
Because I've lived my whole life watching men like him win. And I've learned something. She faced him. They only win if you let them make you stupid. If you let anger cloud your judgment. We beat them by being smarter, better, more disciplined. He pulled her close, right there on the street where anyone could see. I don't deserve you. Probably not. She allowed herself a smile. But you're stuck with me anyway. The petition filing came and went. Official now. Real. The hearing was set for the following Tuesday. Colton hired lawyers, prepared arguments, gathered support from business allies. But everyone knew the real battle would be public opinion, and public opinion in Cedar Springs ran against them. People think I'm a fool, Colton said the night before the hearing. They sat in his ranch house parlor, papers spread across every surface. A lovesick fool being manipulated by a clever woman. Let them think it. Lydia's voice was bitter. They were going to think poorly of us regardless. It's not fair to you. Nothing's ever been fair to me. She met his eyes. But this? Fighting for something that matters? That's more fairness than I've ever had. He reached for her hand. If we lose, we won't. But if we do, his grip tightened. I want you to know something. This ranch, this fight, none of it matters as much as you do. If it comes down to choosing between the land and you, I choose you. Every time. Her throat closed. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Because I'm not worth losing everything for. The words tasted like poison. You're worth everything. He stood, pulled her up with him. Lydia, I need to ask you something, and you can say no. You can tell me I'm crazy, I'm moving too fast, I'm out of my mind. But I need to ask anyway. Her heart hammered. What? Marry me. Simple, direct, terrifying. Not someday, not eventually. Marry me now, before the hearing, before the vote, so everyone in this town knows exactly where I stand. So there's no question about my commitment to you, to this orchard, to our future together. The room spun. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. His eyes blazed. I love you, Lydia Warren. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you refuse to quit even when everything's stacked against you. I love that you see worth where others see waste, potential where others see problems. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving you're worth loving." Tears burned behind her eyes. "This is insane." "Completely," he smiled. "But so is fighting the railroad. So is betting everything on an orchard that might not survive. We're already crazy. Might as well be crazy together." "People will say I trapped you, that I manipulated you into this." "Let them say it. I don't care." His hands framed her face. "Do you love me, Lydia?" The question hung between them. Honest. Impossible. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know what love feels like. I've never had it before." "Then let me show you." He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. "Let me spend every day showing you what you deserve, what you've always deserved." She should say no, should protect herself, should remember that fairy tales ended badly for girls like her. But his eyes held such certainty, such absolute conviction, that maybe, just maybe, this could be real. "Yes," she heard herself say. "I'll marry you." His kiss took her breath away. Desperate and tender and full of promises she didn't know how to believe yet. "Tomorrow," he said against her lips. "We'll do it tomorrow, before the hearing. Margaret can arrange everything." "Tomorrow." The word felt like jumping off a cliff. "Colton, what if—" "No what ifs." He held her close. "We're doing this. Together. And whatever happens after, we face it as husband and wife." She clung to him, this man who'd walked into her life and shattered every certainty she'd ever had. This man who saw her and chose her anyway. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Good." His smile was fierce. "So am I, but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." Margaret, when told the news that night, didn't even blink. "About time. I'll make the arrangements. Tomorrow afternoon work for you?" "You're not surprised?" Colton asked. "Please, I saw this coming weeks ago." She hugged Lydia tight. "Welcome to the family, dear. Now get some rest. You've got a wedding tomorrow and a hearing the day after. You'll need your strength for both." Lydia barely slept, lay in her narrow bed in her small farmhouse, and wondered what she'd agreed to. Marriage. To Colton Hayes. Tomorrow. It didn't feel real. Morning came anyway. Lydia dressed in the burgundy dress again, the only nice thing she owned. Her hands shook, buttoning it up. Colton arrived at noon, looking equally terrified. "Ready?" "No." Honesty again. Always honesty between them. "But let's go anyway." The ceremony was small. Just Margaret, Judge Morrison, and the 3 ranch hands as witnesses. Margaret's parlor, simple vows, a plain gold band that had belonged to Colton's mother. "I, Colton Hayes, take you, Lydia Warren, to be my lawfully wedded wife." His voice was steady. Hers shook. "I, Lydia Warren, take you, Colton Hayes, to be my lawfully wedded husband." "By the power vested in me by the state," Judge Morrison said with a smile, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Colton's kiss was gentle, respectful, mindful of their audience. But his eyes promised more later. Privacy. Time. Everything. "Congratulations," Margaret said, dabbing her eyes. "Now let's celebrate before we have to destroy the railroad tomorrow." The celebration was brief. Champagne, cake, toasts. Then reality crashed back in. The hearing was tomorrow morning. They had one night to prepare. Colton took Lydia back to the ranch. Their ranch now. Their home. "I should have done this properly," he said as he carried her over the threshold. "Traditional. Sweet. Courted you for months. Given you a real wedding with all the trimmings." "I don't need trimmings." She touched his face. "I just need you to be certain. Because if you wake up tomorrow and regret this—" "I won't. Absolute certainty. Lydia, you're the best decision I've ever made. Today, tomorrow, forever." She wanted to believe him, tried to let the words sink past her defenses. "Make love to me," she said quietly. "Show me this is real." He did. Slowly, carefully, with such tenderness she cried. And afterward, lying in his arms in his bed, their bed, she let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, happy endings weren't just for other people. Morning came too soon. They dressed in silence, both knowing what the day would bring. The hearing, the confrontation, the fight for everything. "Whatever happens," Colton said, adjusting his tie, "we're in this together now, legally, permanently. They can't separate us." "They can still destroy us." "They can try." His smile was grim. "But we're stronger than they think." The hearing was held in the town hall, packed wall to wall with people. Merchants, ranchers, townspeople. Everyone with an opinion, and most of them against Colton. Pritchard stood at the front with his lawyers, confident and smug. He'd bought enough support to feel invincible. Judge Morrison called the hearing to order. "We're here to consider the railroad's eminent domain petition for the Morrison Road corridor. Mr. Pritchard, present your case." Pritchard launched into a prepared speech about progress and prosperity, jobs for the community, connection to Denver markets, economic growth that would benefit everyone. "And the land in question," he finished, "is currently undeveloped agricultural space. One small orchard project that can easily be relocated doesn't outweigh the needs of the entire region." "Small?" Colton stood. "Your Honor, if I may." Morrison nodded. "That small orchard project represents $60,000 in investment. 41 trees already planted and establishing. Irrigation infrastructure, soil amendments, expert consultation and labor." He gestured to Lydia. "My wife, Mrs. Hayes, designed the entire system. It's not relocatable. It's fixed investment in permanent agricultural development." The word wife sent ripples through the crowd. Gasps, whispers, shock. Mrs. Alden's voice rose above the rest. "Wife? He married her?" Pritchard's smug expression faltered. "Your Honor, this is clearly a desperate attempt to protect legitimate investment," Colton cut him off. "We were married yesterday, legal and binding. Mrs. Hayes is now co-owner of all ranch properties and assets. Any eminent domain action affects her equally." Lydia stood, her voice clear. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit our agricultural development plan as evidence. It shows projected yields, sustainability models, and economic impact extending 20 years into the future. This isn't speculation, it's established fact." She handed the documents to Morrison. He reviewed them, his expression thoughtful. "These are quite detailed, Mrs. Hayes." "Thank you, Your Honor. I take my work seriously." Pritchard recovered quickly. "A few papers don't change the fundamental question. Does one ranch's profit matter more than an entire region's progress? When that profit is earned through honest labor, yes." Colton's voice rang out. "When that progress is built on theft and corruption, absolutely yes." "How dare you accuse—" "I'm not accusing. I'm stating facts." Colton pulled out his own papers. "These are records of payments made by the railroad company to 3 county commissioners. Bribes, Mr. Pritchard. Clear violations of— Those are private business transactions." "They're criminal acts," Judge Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. "And they'll be investigated fully." He looked at Pritchard with disgust. This hearing is postponed, pending review of these allegations. If they're substantiated, the eminent domain petition will be dismissed with prejudice. Victory. Sudden and shocking. Lydia's knees nearly buckled. Pritchard's face went purple. "You can't do this! The railroad has rights!" "The railroad has no rights to commit fraud." Morrison stood. "This hearing is adjourned." The room erupted. Colton pulled Lydia close as people surged around them, some congratulating, some cursing, all stunned. "We did it," Lydia whispered. "We actually did it." "You did it," Colton kissed her forehead. "Your plans, your expertise, your refusal to quit. All you, Lydia." "Mrs. Hayes now," she corrected, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. They fought their way through the crowd and outside. The afternoon sun hit Lydia's face, and she breathed free air for what felt like the first time in her life. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Colton grinned, "now we finish planting that orchard, and then we show this town exactly what Lydia Hayes is capable of." The name still felt strange, foreign, like wearing someone else's skin. But as Colton took her hand and led her toward their waiting horse, Lydia let herself believe it might someday feel like home. Home felt different now. The ranch house that had been Colton's was theirs, and Lydia moved through it like she was learning a new language. Her clothes hung in the wardrobe next to his. Her brush sat on the vanity. Small markers of permanence that still felt impossible. "You're allowed to relax," Colton said that first evening, finding her standing in the parlor like a guest waiting for permission. "I don't know how." Honest. Always honest. "Then let me teach you." He pulled her onto the sofa, wrapped his arms around her. "This is your home now, Lydia, not mine. Ours. You don't need permission to exist here." She leaned into his warmth, trying to believe it. "The town's going to explode when word spreads." "Let it." His voice was firm. "We won the hearing. Pritchard's being investigated. Judge Morrison's on our side. What can they do to us now?" She could have listed 100 things, but his certainty was contagious, so she let herself rest instead of worry. The explosion came faster than expected. By morning, the whole county knew. Colton Hayes had married the Warren girl, the poor farm girl, the charity case, married her and used the union to protect his land from the railroad. Strategic marriage, Mrs. Alden pronounced at the mercantile. He needed a wife to strengthen his legal claim. She needed security. It's a business arrangement, nothing more. Livia heard the gossip secondhand, through Jack, who'd been in town buying supplies. His face was red with anger when he reported it. "Want me to set them straight, Mrs. Hayes?" Mrs. Hayes. The title still startled her every time. "No," she said. "Let them talk. We have work to do." And they did. The investigation into Pritchard's bribes moved quickly. 2 county commissioners resigned in disgrace. A third was arrested. The railroad company quietly withdrew its eminent domain petition and rerouted their line 20 miles south. Victory should have tasted sweet. Instead, it tasted like ash in Lydia's mouth every time she went to town and felt the stares, heard the whispers. "You shouldn't have to endure this," Margaret said during a visit. "They're vicious." "They've always been vicious." Lydia kept her hands busy with seedling transplants. Now they just have a new reason. Colton could make a public statement, explain that this is a real marriage, not a... It wouldn't matter. Lydia's voice was flat. They believe what they want to believe. No amount of explaining changes that. Margaret studied her. "You're not happy." "I'm grateful." Different thing entirely. "That's not what I asked." Lydia's hands stilled. "I don't know how to be happy. I only know how to survive."
Then it's time you learned the difference. Margaret's tone was gentle, but firm. Colton loves you, Lydia. Actually loves you. You're allowed to love him back without waiting for the other shoe to drop. What if the shoe drops anyway? Then you deal with it together. That's what marriage means. But loving without fear felt impossible. Lydia tried, went through the motions, shared Colton's bed, his home, his life, but kept a piece of herself locked away where disappointment couldn't reach. Colton noticed. Of course he noticed. "Talk to me," he said one night after she'd pulled away from his kiss. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Lydia." He sat up, lit the lamp. "Don't lie to me. We promised honesty." She couldn't meet his eyes.
"I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Be your wife. Be happy. Be someone worthy of—"
Her voice broke. "Worthy?" His anger was sudden, fierce. "You think you're not worthy?" "I know I'm not." The words ripped out of her. "I'm the poor farm girl who got lucky, who married above her station, who's only here because you felt sorry for me." "Is that what you think?" He grabbed her shoulders, forced her to look at him. "That I married you out of pity?" "Didn't you?" "I married you because I love you." Each word was deliberate, clear. "Because you're brilliant and strong, and the only person who's ever challenged me to be better. Because when I look at you, I see my future. Not my charity case, my partner, my equal, my wife." "The town doesn't see it that way." "The town can go to hell." His voice was raw. "I don't care what they think. I care what you think. Do you love me, Lydia?" The question again. The one she'd avoided answering honestly.
"I'm terrified to," she whispered.
"Why?"
"Because everyone I've ever loved has left me, died or abandoned me or—"
She couldn't finish. "I'm not leaving." He pulled her close. "I'm not dying. I'm right here, and I'm staying. You're stuck with me, Lydia Hayes, for better or worse. That's what we promised." She clung to him and let herself cry for the first time since her mother died. Cried for the girl who'd never felt good enough. For the woman who'd learned to expect nothing. For the wife who was still learning how to hope. "I do love you," she said against his chest. "I'm just so scared it won't be enough." "It's already enough." His arms tightened. "You're already enough. You always have been." The words settled into her bones like a promise, like truth she might someday believe. Spring turned to summer. The orchard trees took root, grew strong, showed the first signs of thriving.
Lydia spent her days in the soil, coaxing life from earth, and her nights in Colton's arms, learning what it meant to be loved. Slowly, painfully, she started to believe in her own worth. Then came the announcement, Cedar Springs' annual Founders' Day celebration. 3 days of festivities culminating in a grand ball at the town hall. Everyone who was anyone attended. And this year, for the first time, Lydia would be there. Not as a servant or an outcast, but as Colton Hayes' wife. The invitation arrived on expensive cardstock. Mr. and Mrs. Colton Hayes. Her name in elegant script, like it belonged there. "We don't have to go," Colton said, watching her face. "Yes, we do." Lydia's voice was steady. "I'm tired of hiding, tired of letting them make me feel small." "That's my girl." His pride was evident. "We'll show them exactly who Mrs. Hayes is." Margaret took charge of preparations like a general planning battle. A new dress was commissioned, emerald green silk that made Lydia's eyes look like jewels. Hair styled by a professional. Jewelry borrowed from Margaret's own collection.
"You look like a queen," Margaret said on the day of the ball. "I look like someone pretending to be a queen." But Lydia's voice held less certainty than before. "Sometimes pretending is how we become." Margaret fastened a necklace around Lydia's throat. "Now go show them what you're made of." The ball was already in full swing when they arrived. Music spilled out into the street. Light blazed from every window. Lydia's hands trembled as Colton helped her from the carriage. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." They walked in together, and the room fell silent. Every eye turned. Every conversation stopped. Lydia felt the weight of their judgment like a physical force. Then she lifted her chin and walked deeper into the room with Colton's arms solid beneath her hand.
Mrs. Alden recovered first, her smile razor sharp.
"Mrs. Hayes, how lovely to see you."
"Mrs. Alden," Lydia's voice was cool, polite.
"You're looking well."
"And you're looking prosperous." The word dripped with implication.
"Marriage clearly agrees with you."
"It does." Colton's voice was firm. "My wife is the most remarkable woman I've ever met. I'm lucky to have her."
"Lucky indeed."
But Mrs. Alden's eyes said something else entirely. They moved through the crowd, and Lydia felt like an exhibit at a fair. People stared, whispered, made no effort to hide their fascination or disgust.
"This was a mistake," she muttered to Colton.
"This was necessary." He squeezed her hand. "Trust me." The mayor called everyone to attention for speeches. Boring recitations of town history, thanks to various donors and committees. Then something unexpected. "And this year," Mayor Foster said, "we have a special recognition." The railroad company recently attempted to seize private property through questionable legal means. Thanks to the diligence and expertise of one of our own citizens, those plans were exposed and defeated. Lydia's heart stopped. "Mrs. Lydia Hayes," the mayor continued, "would you please come forward?" She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Colton touched her back. "Go, you earned this." She walked to the front on legs that didn't feel like her own. The crowd parted, and she saw everything in their faces. Surprise, resentment, grudging respect. The mayor handed her a certificate. "For outstanding service to the community of Cedar Springs. Your expertise and dedication protected not just one ranch, but set a precedent that will protect all our citizens from corporate overreach." Applause. Scattered at first, then building. Not everyone clapped. Mrs. Alden's hands stayed at her sides. But Judge Morrison applauded loudly. Margaret beamed, and Colton's eyes held such pride she thought her heart might burst. "Thank you," Lydia managed. Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because it was right. Because good land deserves good stewardship. Because—" she looked at Colton. "Because some things are worth fighting for." More applause. Genuine this time. She returned to Colton's side, and he kissed her forehead right there in front of everyone. "Told you. Queen." The rest of the evening transformed. People approached her with questions about agriculture, about soil management, about her plans for the orchard. Some were genuinely curious. Others were clearly trying to get in her good graces now that she'd proven valuable. She answered them all with the same professionalism she brought to her work. No gloating, no bitterness, just competence. "You're amazing," Colton whispered during a waltz. "You know that?" "I'm just being myself." But she smiled when she said it.
Exactly. That's what's amazing. Later, when the crowd thinned and the music slowed, Sheriff Brennan approached them.
"Mrs. Hayes, wondered if I might have a word." Lydia braced herself. "Of course." Just wanted to say well done on the railroad business. His weathered face was sincere. This town needs people like you. People who stand up, who do the right thing, even when it's hard. Thank you, Sheriff. Also wanted to apologize for not stepping in sooner, when you were being harassed. He looked uncomfortable. I should have done more. You did what you could. Lydia's voice was generous. And you stood up when it mattered most. He nodded, relieved, and moved away. That, Colton said, was gracious of you. He meant it. That's worth acknowledging. She watched the sheriff rejoin his wife. People can change, if we let them. Speaking of change, Colton turned her to face the corner where Mrs. Alden stood with her husband.
Ready for the final test? Do we have to?
We don't have to do anything, but it might be worth it. They approached the Aldens. Mrs. Alden's face went tight, but she managed to smile. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, congratulations on your recognition. Thank you, Mrs. Alden. Lydia kept her voice neutral. I appreciate that. An awkward silence. Then, surprisingly, it was Mr. Alden who broke it. My wife tells me you're quite knowledgeable about orchards, Mrs. Hayes. We've been considering planting some fruit trees on our property. Perhaps you might consult? Lydia blinked. A peace offering, or a genuine request. Either way, it was something. I'd be happy to discuss it, she said carefully. My rates are $2 a day for consultation. Mrs. Alden's eyebrows rose, but Mr. Alden just nodded. Fair enough. I'll contact you next week. They moved away, and Lydia let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. That just happened, she said. That just happened. Colton grinned. You're officially a respected businesswoman now. How does it feel? Strange, she considered. Good strange, but still strange. The final dance of the evening was announced. Colton pulled her onto the floor, and they moved together like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. I love you, he said quietly, in case you forgot. I didn't forget. She met his eyes. I love you too, without fear this time, without waiting for disaster. His smile was worth every hardship she'd endured to get here. They left the ball as the first hints of dawn touched the sky. The carriage ride home was quiet, both of them exhausted but content. Inside the house, Lydia kicked off her shoes and sank onto the sofa. That was terrifying. That was triumph, Colton sat beside her. You walked in as the girl they mocked and left as the woman they respect, whether they like it or not. Some of them will never like it. Some of them will never matter. He took her hand. But you matter. Your work matters. Our life together matters. That's what counts. She leaned her head on his shoulder. When did you get so wise? When I married someone smart enough to make me think. He kissed her hair. You've changed me, Lydia. Made me better. Made me want to be better. You did that yourself. We did it together. He pulled her closer. That's the point. That's what partnership means. Outside, the orchard was silent in the pre-dawn light. 41 trees standing strong, their roots deep in good soil. In a few years, they'd bear fruit. In 10 years, they'd be mature and productive. A legacy built on hard work and refusal to quit. Just like the woman who'd designed them. Lydia thought about the girl who'd walked into Miller's Mercantile in a patched dress, expecting mockery and receiving it. She thought about the woman who'd stood in front of the town tonight, accepting recognition she'd earned. The distance between those two people felt impossible to measure. What are you thinking? Colton asked. That I don't recognize myself anymore. She turned to face him. The girl I was would never believe this is real. This house, this marriage, this respect. Good. His voice was firm. That girl deserved better than what she had. This woman is getting what she always should have had. A home, a partner, a life worth living. Lydia smiled through sudden tears. When you walked into that mercantile and defended me,
You didn't just stand up for me. You showed me I was worth standing up for. That changed everything." "You changed everything." He wiped her tears with his thumb. "You walked into my ranch and turned it into our home. You fought the railroad and won. You faced down the worst this town could throw at you and came out stronger. That's all you, Lydia. Not me. You." She kissed him then, deep and grateful and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, the sun was rising over the orchard, painting everything gold. "Come on," Colton said, standing and pulling her up. "Let's go check the trees before breakfast." They walked out together, hand in hand, across land they'd fought for and won. The morning air was sweet with growing things. Birds sang in the cottonwoods. Life pulsed through every leaf and branch. Lydia touched the nearest apple tree, feeling the strength in its young trunk. In 5 years, this would produce fruit. In 10, it would be a cornerstone of the ranch's agricultural success. She designed this, built this, made this real through knowledge and sweat and sheer determination. "You did this," Colton said, reading her thoughts. "This whole orchard. It's your creation." "Ours," she corrected. "None of this exists without your support, your belief, your willingness to see past what everyone else saw. I just saw the truth. You're the one who made it matter."
They stood together as the sun climbed higher, warming the earth and everything growing in it. Somewhere in town, people were waking up with changed opinions or stubborn prejudices. Somewhere, Mrs. Alden was probably fuming about Lydia's recognition. Somewhere, the railroad was rerouting around land they couldn't steal. None of it touched them here, in this moment, in this orchard, on this land that was theirs. "What do you want to do today?" Colton asked. Lydia smiled. "Everything. Finish the irrigation on the eastern section, check the soil pH on the new transplants, meet with Jack about the fence repairs, have lunch with you, work until sunset, go to bed in our home, and wake up tomorrow ready to do it all again." "Sounds perfect." "It is perfect." She turned to face him, this man who'd changed her life by refusing to let her settle for less than she deserved. "We're perfect. Not because we're flawless, but because we chose each other, fought for each other, built something real together." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Best decision I ever made." "Best decision we ever made," she corrected. "Together." And standing there in the orchard they'd built with sweat and stubbornness and love, Lydia Hayes finally understood what she'd been missing her whole life. Not rescue, not charity, not someone to make her worthy. She'd always been worthy. She just needed someone to see it clearly enough to help her see it too. And now, with Colton beside her and their future growing strong in the soil beneath their feet, she saw it with perfect clarity. She was enough. She'd always been enough. And every tree they planted, every harvest they reaped, every year they built together, would prove that truth over and over until even she couldn't doubt it anymore. This was her life now. Not borrowed, not temporary, not contingent on anyone else's approval. Hers. Theirs. Real and permanent, and exactly what she'd earned through courage, competence, and the refusal to quit, even when the whole world told her she should. They'd laughed at her ragged dress, but she'd walked out of that mercantile wearing something far more valuable than silk, her dignity intact and her future secure. And that was worth more than all the expensive gowns in Cedar Springs.